Hello, and welcome back to Stone Creek Turnings. I'm Eric. So for today's video, I'm out in my backyard in my wood pile, and I'm going to make a bowl out of reclaimed wood. Now, I probably feel like I should probably say that 99% of my wood has all been reclaimed from either tree services or friends' backyards or trees that they'd already cut down. But for this one, my main wood is going to be some black walnut from a long standing dead tree that some friends from work had cut down and wanted to get rid of, and I was more than happy to take that off their hands. I'm also going to be using some extra siding board from my house, which is kind of like a pressed particle board, and then some wooden flooring that had been taken out of an old clock factory a bunch of years ago. So what I'm planning on doing is, you can see I've kind of sectioned this bowl or this log into 3 different blanks. I'll have my main section here, my second one right here, and then a third one I'll be making some smaller bowls out of this section, and then this middle will be waste. So what I'll be doing is probably on this secondary bowl blank, I'll be cutting that in half, and I'll be making a segment out of these boards right here after I plane them down to size. So the first step will be to cut this with my chainsaw, get it where I need it to be, and I'll run through the planer to make sure that I actually have a smooth surface to glue that to. So that's what's next. All right, now that the chainsawing is done, I have 3 very nice bowl blanks. I have the biggest one, which is this one. That'll be about like a 14 or 15 inch diameter bowl blank. The one that I'm mainly using is for this project is this one, which I've already cut in half. Try to get as straight a cut as possible to minimize the hand planing on there. And then this one will end up being 2 blanks. I'll cut that in the middle, and there'll be kind of just some nice 7-inch bowls, which are some really nice black walnut. Okay, so now I'm ready for the next stage of this project. I need to get all the surfaces that we glue together, I need to get those as smooth as possible. I'm going to start with my hand planer just to kind of speed things up a little bit. So I'll be hand planing this surface, the corresponding surface on this chunk, and then also both the sides of the, reclaimed lumber to get those as smooth as possible. Then I'll run through the planer just to make sure they're all the same thickness, and just to kind of do some final gut check to make sure it's as smooth as possible. Okay, so I finished doing the hand planing, and I am ready for the actual planer. I had these surfaces as flat as I could get it by hand. Hopefully, I didn't really think about it. Hopefully, it'll actually fit through my lathe. I might actually have to trim the sides down a little bit so it'll fit through, because it's only a 12-inch lathe, and some of these edges might be a little bit too large, but that's really easy to fix. So, next step will be we'll produce a completely smooth finish, completely level sides, and then I'll also take my boards right here and make sure those are all planed to the same thickness, so when I glue them together you won't have any gaps. Alright, so all of the planing work is finished. The mating sides of both these boards are nice and smooth and actually level. One thing I did figure out is that you have to kind of make sure that when you're hand planing, put on a flat surface, make sure it doesn't wobble at all. Because if it does wobble, even if it looks flat, when it goes to the planer, it'll kind of float a little bit, and you'll kind of end up with a very smooth but curved surface. So as long as it sits flat on a table, kind of start there and then go to the planer. I also have planed both of the boards so they're the same thickness. For these boards, the rim is going to be 11 inches, and the bottom is going to be at least a 9 to start with. I kind of use these plastic discs that I made a long time ago. That way I actually know where the center is. I know exactly where the edge is. I'm going to go ahead and take a bandsaw to these and cut them out. And then I'm going to figure out and start laying out the pattern for the inlay portion, or the segmented portion. I think the particle board, it has a very interesting texture to it. I've made a few things with that before, and people are always kind of interested to see what wood that is. The particle board or the press board, it's really easy to find, especially on like construction sites. There's lots of big boards, but this is just kind of one that I had laying around from my house. And ordinarily, if there's a larger piece, I would just do that whole layer as one solid sheet. But with a smaller one, I'm going to kind of experiment with some segmenting. So I'm going to put this on a bandsaw, and then we'll move on to laying out the segmented portion of it. I'm ready to start cutting up the pieces of wood to do the segmented work. I think what I'm going to do is kind of do the thicker particle board in the middle, the floorboards on both sides, and then on the outside I'm going to do the particle board again. So I have kind of 3 layers of this, 2 layers of the thinner one, and just do the simple strips, just because I don't have a whole lot of experience, or I'm not as good with the angled cuts and making it look like most segmented bowls. So I'm going to just do the strips. Alright, so I have all of the boards cut to the length that I need. I cut them all longer than what they really need to be. And what I'm going to do tonight is actually glue all of these to the rim portion of the bowl. And then tomorrow, once it's all dry, I'll go ahead, flip it over, and I'll cut the circle around there. And then I will go ahead tomorrow and glue that portion on there. And then I'll be ready to put it on the lathe and actually start turning it and shaping the bowl. I did find out that even with a table saw, the edges were still a little bit rough. So I actually had to take all these, just lightly touch them on my belt sander to get a much smoother, more consistent edge. Any gap that you do, or any unevenness in there, will show up in gaps in the wood or in the bowl once you glue all these together and press them. So I'm just going to put kind of a healthy coat of glue on here. I'm going to press it this way to hold it all together, and I'll also basically put this with some weight on top of it to push it all down, and then hopefully by tomorrow it's all dry. Okay, so this is dried completely overnight. It's ready for this to be glued on as well. I have to admit that I did a lousy job of actually gluing and clamping this down because there's some pretty big gaps in there, and I actually had to plane this again to get it smooth again. But now it's ready to go. I think I'll have a lot better luck clamping this on, just because it's a completely flat surface against a completely flat surface. So I'm going to glue this up again tonight, and tomorrow I'll revisit it and hopefully put it back in my lathe and begin the turning portion of this project. Alright, well, I've already gone ahead and I've finished the outside, or I've rough turned the outside of the bowl, just to kind of figure out what the final shape is going to be. I did a lousy job of gluing this together, so there are a bunch of gaps in there. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that with sawdust or some coffee grounds and then glue that in place. And I'll do the same thing on the inside as well, just to seal up those gaps. It's been a little bit more than a week since I glued this together. I kind of got sidetracked on an outside job, and as you can tell, it's downpouring today. So today I'm inside. So I'm going to put this back in the lathe. I might try out my hollowing tools again just to get some more practice, but I'm going to cut that out and get the final shape. Before I do some final sanding, I'm going to do the sawdust and glue. Then I'll do the final sanding, and we'll have a finished product. Alright, well, I finally finished this bowl. It took me about a week or so longer than I expected, but it turned out really well. As you can see, I finished the base. While I was finishing the base, it kind of fell off the lathe, so I had to reshape the bottom a little bit but no problems there. So in total, I have some reclaimed siding or wood pressboard on there. I have some reclaimed wooden floor from an old factory, and I also have a log that had been in somebody's backyard that had been dead for a while, and they really wanted to get rid of it or burn it. So all in all, this is kind of a completely reclaimed wood bowl. It's a little bit different style than what I'm used to, but it's kind of fun to challenge yourself and try new things. Some of the lessons I've learned is that you have to be really careful in how you glue it up and how you clamp it to make sure there's no gaps, just because it's possible to fill the gaps in, but it just doesn't look quite the same. I'm really happy with I hadn't used this this black walnut yet, so I love the ripple into it. And really, I'm just happy how it all turned out. This is a thicker bowl, so this should stand up for years and years of use. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.